Take, say, the American Revolution. When you study the American Revolution here, you learn the colonists were opposed to taxation without representation. Now, if you look into the history, that's not what they were, of course they didn't like that, but what they were opposed to and concerned with was that in Britain there was rising opposition to slavery. And by the 1770s, leading British legislators were condemning the practice as so odious it can't be tolerated under British rule. The founders of this country were slave owners, almost without exception. The major source of presidents was Virginia. Interestingly, Virginia was not opposed when Britain banned international traffic and trade in 1808. The reason they were not opposed is traffic and trade was cutting into their production. Virginia was one of the main producers of slaves. They didn't want more slaves coming in. They wanted to produce the slaves themselves for the South and the West. So that's the origins of the country. They could see the handwriting on the wall when Britain began to oppose slavery and wanted to free themselves of that danger. The other major factor was that the British were preventing colonists from moving to the West. The British set up a line roughly at the Appalachians saying, can't go further than this. And they wanted to settle the whole country, drive out the indigenous population. So we got to get rid of the British. I mean, do you study that in American history? Do you study the fact that the U.S. conquered half of Mexico in a war that General Grant, later president, called the most wicked war in history? Well, if you take a course in a graduate school, you may study it. But is that what we know about ourselves? Do we know about ourselves that we effectively exterminated the indigenous population and that to a very substantial extent our economy developed on the basis of the most vicious form of slavery in history? England too. Manufacturing, finance, retail, commerce, all of it. Cotton was the most important commodity in world trade right through the 19th century. How was it produced? On hideous slave labor camps. And in fact, it never really ended. After the Civil War, another form of slavery was introduced, basically criminalizing black life, which created another effectively slave labor force from U.S. prisons. I mean, this is American history. You can learn about it. It's not censored, you know. But is it common awareness and consciousness?